Section 5 of The Psychic Life of Micro-Organisms by Alfred Binet. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are public domain. For more information on volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 5. The Psychology of Proto-Organisms. It is difficult in the extreme to mark out the lines of a psychology of proto-organisms from data so incomplete as those we have just collected. We shall content ourselves with a few brief considerations. The apparent result of our investigations up to this point is that the greater number of movements and actions observed in microorganisms are direct responses to excitations emanating from the medium in which they live. It is the condition of the medium that, to all appearance, rigidly determines the character and manner of their activity. In a word, they exhibit no marks of pre-adaptation. But it will not do to let the matter rest with this general survey of the subject. We shall have to examine more closely each detail of these reflex actions of adaptation, beginning with the sensory phase and ending with the motory phase. Analysis discloses that several determining elements may be distinguished in these phenomena. They are 1. The perception of the external object. 2. The choice made between a number of objects. 3. The perception of their position in space. 4. Movements calculated either to approach the body and seize it or to flee from it. We are not in a position to determine whether these various acts are accompanied by consciousness or whether they follow as simple physiological processes. This question we are obliged, for the present, to forego. 1. The perception of an external body. Among the lowest forms, it appears that perception is always the result of a direct irritation produced by contact of the external body with the protoplasm of the animalcule. This is what takes place, to all appearance, among the amoeba. For these organisms, the condition necessary to the perception of a solid particle is contact with it. A step forward has been effected in those organisms that are able to perceive external objects by contact from a distance, as is observed, for instance, in the actinopheres, which perceives all bodies that chance to touch its long filamentous pseudopods. Yet in this instance, the pseudopod merely acts the part of an extended tactile organ. The vibratile cilia, and still more the long lash of the mastigophores, enable the animal to discern the presence of contiguous particles at a certain distance from its body. By the pressure exerted upon their appendages, it is not known whether there are many animalcula that perceive the presence of nutriment from a distance and without coming in direct contact with it. It appears, however, that this is the case with the duodenum, which shatters its prey from a distance and without touching it. 2. Choice. We have seen that microorganisms do not absorb indiscriminately every solid particle they meet. They exercise a choice. Among the lowest species, the choice is in the lowest degree rudimentary. The organism restricts itself to a discrimination of mineral particles, sand, for example, from organic substances. It rejects the former and absorbs the latter. Among the higher animalculae, the choice is more intelligent. There are infusoria that feed only upon plants and animals. There are also those which feed exclusively upon one species. This exercise of choice is one of the most incomprehensible phenomena. It is exceedingly difficult to explain it without resort to anthropomorphism. If we hold to what observation directly teaches us, the choice may be said to consist in the following acts. When the animalcule perceives certain kinds of substances, and particularly those substances which serve it as customary food, it invariably goes through the same movement, which consists of an act of prehension. When the substance touched, seen, or collided with, as the case may be, is of another kind, the microorganism does not go through this act. Such is the phenomenon. As to the explanation of the same, we are unable to give one. According to M. E. Maupas, if certain infusoria feed exclusively upon a certain species, it is because their buccal apparatus, or organ of prehension, makes it impossible for them to feed upon different species which possess different tegumentary envelopes. The question is to ascertain whether this explanation is applicable only in certain cases, as appears very probable to us, or whether, on the other hand, it is of complete and universal applicability. We confess that the hypothesis of M. Maupas does not explain to us why a hunter infusori that throws trichocytes, like the duodenum, attacks the Paramecium anerelia, and not the Paramecium bursaria. It is possible that certain species attract the organisms which feed upon them by means of a physical or chemical excitation. The researches of Professor Pfeiffer of the Tübingen Botanical Institute lend a certain confirmation to this hypothesis. Calculation of the position occupied by the external body. It is a universal fact that microorganisms not only perceive external bodies, but they also indicate by their movements an exact knowledge of the position occupied by these bodies. It might be said that they invariably possess a sense of position in space. The possession of this sense is absolutely indispensable to them, for it does not suffice them to know that the presence of an exterior body in order to approach it and seize it. They must furthermore know its position so as to direct their movements accordingly. The simplest form of a sense of localization is met with the amoeba, which, when it closes about a nutritive particle, always emits its pseudopods at precisely that part of the body where the foreign substance caused the irritation. The most complicated instance of localization is met with in the Didinium, which we have so often cited. The Didinium knows precisely the position of the prey it follows, for it takes aim at the object of the pursuit like a marksman, and transpierces it with its nettle-like darts. Between these two species, we find all the intermediate instances of localization of perceptions. However, doubt exists upon the question as to whether proto-organisms know the direction and instance of external bodies, or whether they only succeed in getting at them after a series of tentative movements. The observations which we have collated do not solve the question. 4. Motory phase. We now pass to the motory phase. The movements made by microorganisms, as if in response to an excitation, are not in most instances simple reflex motions. They are movements adapted to an end. We cannot repeat it too much. These movements are not explained by the simple phenomena of cellular irritability. In the very first instance, they vary according to the excitation. A given excitation produces a corresponding motory response. A body situated at the right does not bring about the same movement that a body situated at the left does. A particle of the nutritive sort does not provoke the same course of action that a particle of a different sort does. All this implies that associations have been established in the protoplasm between certain excitations and certain movements. The explanations of the physical nature of these associations appears to us totally impossible. The quite ingenious ideas broached by Spencer upon the lines of least resistance offered by the commissural fibers cannot be applied here, since everything takes place in a single cell. What would be necessary to explain is how, in consequence of what mechanism of structure, one form of molecular movement, corresponding to a given excitation, is followed by a certain other form of molecular movement corresponding to an act likewise determined. End of section 5.